Water has long been a point of dissent among the Middle Eastern countries, right alongside territorial and religious disputes. In that part of the world, there is a demand for water that the supply cannot meet. This creates conflict and security threats among the Middle Eastern countries. One such conflict is over the water of the Litani River between Israel and Lebanon. This conflict has a long history. The Litani River is located in Lebanon, including South Lebanon, which Israel has occupied in the past and to which Israel still has access. Israel and Lebanon have not been able to agree on who needs the river more. Armed conflicts between Lebanon and Israel have happened in the past, and the fight over the Litani River has been cited as a definite motive. Despite the fact that another armed conflict is very likely to occur in the future, Israel and Lebanon have not been able to come to an agreement on the Litani River due to their ideological and cultural differences, and more importantly, their deep-rooted mutual distrust. The history of this conflict goes back to the 1967 and 1982 wars between Israel and Lebanon. While the water struggles between Lebanon and Israel were not the primary or only catalyst for these struggles, there is no question that the sense of a personal security threat caused by concerns over water resources played a very important role in both armed conflicts. Now, in present-day Israel and Lebanon, the water controversy continues. Israel has long been interested in the Litani River and has seen it as a potentially vital and extremely important aspect of their goal of securing adequate water resources. Ever since Israel's founding in 1948, water has been seen as inextricably linked to national security and survival. The Litani is not just a river to Israel, it is more importantly a symbol of necessary regional security and guaranteed water resources. Israel has in the past occupied part of southern Lebanon, where part of the Litani is located. While Israel still has access to the Litani now, they are not supposed to be using it. Lebanon believes that Israel is secretly using the Litani and directly accused Israel of this in 1994. These accusations show that Lebanon is not willing to easily grant full access to the Litani anytime soon, and have led some to believe that Israel may use force to fully acquire the Litani River in the future, as its acquisition is seeming to become more and more of a necessity for Israel.
As the dry months of summer sweep through the Middle East, Israel is faced with its worst water crisis ever. The water level in Israel's three main water sources, the Sea of Galilee, the coastal aquifer, and the mountain aquifer, have now receded to the lowest levels in recorded history. In fact, the three sources have already dropped below the red line, the point at which Israel is supposed to stop pumping. Faced with increased consumption due to population growth, land development, and water commitments to Jordan and the Palestinians, Israel has no choice but to continue pumping from its water sources. Yet if Israel continues, water levels will soon drop under the black line, the point of no return, where continued pumping will cause severe, irreversible damage to Israel's water sources. With many more rainless months to go, Israel is already dangerously close.
Despite Israel's arguments that they need the water more than Lebanon does, and that they would put the Litani River to better use, Lebanon still asserts that the river is just as indispensable to the Lebanese. Lebanon has found that the use of the Litani is essential to its industrial and agricultural development. They have claimed that without full use of the Litani, irrigation methods would fail, causing much of Lebanon to become a desert. Lebanon claims that there would be very significant social, economic, and environmental repercussions if Israel were to overtake the river.
Every Lebanese citizen must know that the integrated management of the Litani River is a national duty, and that postponing its achievement runs against national interest. Ibrahim Abdelal says, as Herodotus once said, Egypt is the gift of the Nile. Maybe that day will come soon when one could say, Lebanon is the gift of the Litani.
The two countries cannot seem to agree on any kind of compromise, and Lebanon runs the increasing risk of an invasion by Israel and the subsequent complete loss of the Litani River. One reason for Israel and Lebanon's failure to negotiate has to do with their very different ideological beliefs. Israel and Lebanon are very diverse and ideologically different countries. Lebanon is about 60% Muslim and the national language is Arabic. In fact, in recent years, Muslims have demanded more political representation and equality, and Lebanon has seen major demographic transformations in favor of Muslims. In contrast, Israel is largely Jewish, and Hebrew is a national language. Israel's strong religious ties and weak relations with the other Arab countries leads to isolation, as does Israel's special status as a close ally of the United States, and this isolation in turn has caused a massive level of distrust between the other Middle Eastern countries and Israel. Based on its history, Israel is very cautious when it comes to international relations with other countries. Israel is reluctant to believe that disputes and conflicts can be solved peacefully, quickly, or easily. It is hard for the leadership in Israel to accept that conflicts with neighboring Arab countries can be solved through peaceful negotiations, as such attempts have failed in the past. Lebanon and Israel are two democratic states, yet they have no institutions that regulate their relations or even a peace treaty. What they do have between them is mutual distrust. Suspicion between these two countries is a natural reaction, especially after years of conflict. This is especially true given that the area about which both countries are in conflict is a border area. Lebanon is suspicious of Israel's activity regarding an area that takes place close to a border, and border areas are particularly threatening to countries. Armed conflict has occurred between Lebanon and Israel before, and could very well occur again. In fact, very recently the two countries again went to war. In 2006, conflicts between Lebanon and Israel began again when people from the Lebanon militant group, the Hezbollah, fired missiles at the Israeli border. Several soldiers were killed and many more injured. This attack led Israel to respond with airstrikes targeted for Lebanon, an air-naval blockade, and a ground invasion of South Lebanon. Realism would suggest that it was inevitable for the long battle over an important security asset and resource, the Litani River, to erupt in armed conflict. There is a way for Lebanon and Israel to avoid future armed conflict. If they are able to reach a negotiation, then fighting over the same resource will stop being a problem. There is a clear trade between the two countries that would benefit them both. There is not enough water in the region to fully support both countries, and both Lebanon and Israel claim to have a shortage of adequate usable water. Contributing to the already scarce amounts of water is the fact that Lebanon has limited development of technology to improve the supply of and manage water resources. The desirable trade-off between Lebanon and Israel is this: Lebanon should let Israel divert the Litani River in exchange for much-needed new technological assets. In order for the two countries to have the necessary conversation and communicate clearly, they need to learn to trust each other and move past their ideological differences. While realism seems to state that war is inevitable between two countries with competing security and resource issues, this is not the case. Peaceful negotiations are possible if a certain level of trust and understanding accompanies them. Lebanon and Israel have similar motives and needs when it comes to water resource acquisition, and especially the Litani River. This should be enough for them to put aside their cultural differences and mistrust, as both countries want the same thing in the end.